Thank you. Doesn't it just feel great being here to honor and remember someone who had such a positive, lasting influence on our country and the world? I am deeply honored to be with so many people who were close to Edie. I thank her cousins for those really moving memories of your relationship. I thank Karen for reminding us that it really all does come down to love. One of my favorite phrases from a longtime friend of mine: I've loved and been loved, and all the rest is background music. Edie loved music too. And she danced to the music of her heart and mind for her full life. I thank her dear friend and champion, Robbie Kaplan, as well as Robbie's wife, Rachel, and their son, Jacob, who loved Edie like so many did as part of their extended family. And I'm honored to be here with her wife and fellow activist. People who spent time with you and Edie, Judith, know how much joy you brought her and how much love she brought you. I didn't know Edie as well as those who have spoken, and many of you, but I do know what Edie means to America, not only to our history, but to our present and our future. All week long, we've seen this immense outpouring of love and gratitude for Edie. People have taken to social media to share their favorite memories, everyone from friends to fans to a fact checker who once worked on a profile of her. And I have to tell you, I have a really high regard for fact checkers. I don't know, I would have to turn to the rabbis and maybe ask for some smidgen of forgiveness for how I feel about those who dwell in an alternate reality. One man told the story of running up to Edie at the Container Store on 6th Avenue. With a little encouragement from his then boyfriend, now fiancé, he thanked Edie. He told her that she and Thea had changed his life. Edie grabbed his arm, winked, and said, "Don't thank me, just get married." She said it's the most magical feeling to wake up married. From what you've heard of this extraordinary woman who was a pathbreaker first in science and computers, and then in social history and politics and culture, she didn't set out to make history. She grew up in a time when women were expected to settle down, get married, let their husbands support them. Instead, at 23 years old, Edie was divorced, living on her own in New York City, and supporting herself, which was practically unheard of in those days. Those were the days when the classifieds, you remember the classifieds, they came out in something called newspapers. They were divided into two categories, and I am not making this up: help wanted male and help wanted female. But Edie was a trailblazer even then. She got her master's degree in math. She became one of the first and few women computer programmers at IBM. And the photos from that time are wonderful. Edie looking determined, standing in front of a computer the size of this room, or sitting behind a desk, in charge and clearly loving it. As I was thinking about her, I too was reminded of the wisdom of Maya Angelou, who said, each time a woman stands up for herself without knowing it, possibly without claiming it, she stands up for all women. Edie did that in those early days, that first PC, those times that seemed so long ago, and she broke barriers. By now, much of America is familiar with Edie and Thea's love story. For over 40 years, they were inseparable. Before Stonewall, before pride parades, before two women could marry anywhere in the world, their devotion to one another was its own quiet, revolutionary act. They loved each other through good times and hard times, including the hardest time of all, Thea's diagnosis of progressive multiple sclerosis. For decades, Edie gladly took care of Thea, and even then, she said, it was a pleasure. After being told that Thea had no more than a year to live, they flew to Canada and were legally married. When Thea died, 2 years later, Edie, of course, was overcome with grief. And then that grief was compounded by the injustice that she owed hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes she wouldn't have had to pay if she had been married to a man. As Edie used to say, if Thea had been Theo. So she knew she had two choices: accept this painful injustice or fight back. She chose to fight all the way to the highest court in the land. And with the brilliant, dogged Robbie Kaplan by her side, they not only made the case for her marriage, they made the case for equality, forcefully and poignantly. The day Edie won, much of America cheered with her, not with the style or the pink scarf. That was uniquely hers, but with a recognition that a wrong had been righted. Through it all, her strength never wavered, though she did confess to one moment of panic, the day she saw her name in print as United States v. Windsor. It is fitting that she will be immortalized in history books in that landmark decision, synonymous with equal rights and dignity under the law. But she didn't stop there. She continued to support the needs and the rights of the LGBT community. She helped change hearts and minds, including mine. And we are forever grateful to her for that. She mentored and supported women in technology. She corrected information about MS. She couldn't stand the thought of causing more fear and uncertainty for anyone living with the disease or for their loved ones. She backed Jim Obergefell, who later brought his own case to the Supreme Court, which made marriage equality the law of the land. It was the LGBT community that had given Edie the strength to live her truth, and she dedicated her life to paying it forward. She felt strongly that as necessary as it was, marriage was just the beginning, and she was right. Until everyone can live free from discrimination and hate, no matter who you are or who you love, our work is far from finished. When I think of Edie, I think of that line from A Midsummer Night's Dream, "And though she be but little, she is fierce." She was fierce. How she experienced loss, grief, and injustice made her only more generous, more open-hearted, and more fearless in her fight. She refused to give up on the promise of America. There wasn't a cynical, defeatist bone in her body. That's especially important for us to remember now. Through her determination and sheer force of will, she brought us another step closer to that more perfect union. Now, in this moment, when so much hard-fought progress is hanging in the balance, it is up to all of us to pick up where she left off. We really owe it to her. To ensure, as I've said before, that gay rights are human rights, and human rights are gay rights now and forever. It's easy to grow weary fighting these fights. But remember Edie Windsor, who took on and won against the US government. She pushed us all to be better, stand taller, dream bigger. She embodied the words of Mary Oliver: "There is nothing more pathetic than caution. When headlong might save a life, even possibly your own." She did it all headlong, falling in love, not once, but twice. Something even she never thought was possible until she met Judith. She inspired those of us who met her and countless people she never knew, and because of her, people came out, marched in their first Pride parade, married the love of their life. Women followed in her footsteps in science, technology, engineering, and math, shattering stereotypes and breaking barriers of their own. Advocates and activists watched her stand up to injustice and found renewed determination to wage their own battles. So thank you, Edie. Thank you for being a beacon of hope, for proving that love is more powerful than hate, for filling us with a sense of possibility and promise as we answer the question posed by Mary Oliver: tell me what it is you plan to do with your own one wild and precious life. Let us continue to be inspired by Edie's wild and precious life, and let us make her proud every day of how we answer that question for ourselves. Thank you, Edie.